Welcome to another episode of the Ridgeback Rumble Talk, where we are joined by JC Thivierge from the men's hockey team. JC, how are you doing this fine morning?
Good, and yourself?
I'm doing pretty well too. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. So,
Thank you for having me.
anytime. Always glad to have you. And I see you were number 17 this past season. Why did you choose number 17 as your number?
Originally, when I first got into as a first year, I didn't really have much of a choice. We had like a choice of like I think six or seven numbers, and 17 was the one that kind of got my attention, so I went for it. And then last year we actually had a choice of switching our numbers or keeping it. And to me, the reason I chose 17 in first year, luckily, was because back in my junior career, there was a teammate of mine who wore 17, and he was like a real inspiration for me. He really kind of took me under his wing and taught me so many things about life, about hockey, and all that. So I decided to keep 17 and the number 17 in his honor.
Okay, that's pretty deep reason.
Yeah.
Like definitely, there's a strong connection with you with that number. It wasn't just a fluke; it just happened. Okay,
No, exactly. I'm super happy that it was available in first year, even though it wasn't my first choice, but it turned out to be something pretty special.
exactly. And you can look back at it definitely with a lot of memories for sure. And also, I see that you're from Wheeling, Ontario. So, of course, I'm familiar just a little bit with the Wheeling area. I realize it's pretty close to Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, those kind of areas. Do you go to
Yeah.
Niagara Falls pretty often when you were back home?
Actually, quite a bit. So I live about 15 minutes away from the actual falls.
Okay.
So essentially, especially even during the quarantine, I just go for a drive down to the falls and um, just clear my head. And when there's nothing to do, it's always a nice sight for a nice sight. So I just float around, and then actually, there's the Niagara Parkway that goes like kind of like all around the falls. And if you go a smidge further down, there's a bunch of like $1 million mansions as well. So I
Oh,
just go in front of those and look at mansions.
that's pretty cool. Honestly, that's definitely an activity that I've never tried that much before. But you just opened up my eyes to a whole new world. Hey, I never saw that sport before. Mansion viewing. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And then, so that's more like if you turn, so have you ever been to Niagara Falls?
Yeah, like two or three times.
Okay. Okay, so you know like the main strip, like the Clifton Hill, like you go down and there's like all these activities and stuff. So if you go all the way down where like you can't turn, like you can't keep going straight, like you're at the falls, you can either turn right or left. Essentially, turning right is where like you head down the Niagara Parkway, you see like a bunch of like fancy restaurants, that kind of stuff. And then if you turn left, you're going to actually head to Niagara on the Lake, which is something that not many people are aware of. Like they've heard of it, but they've never really actually gone and explored. And that it's about 30-35 minutes away, which it's not really a long drive in my opinion. So I go through that. It's like you go along the, I believe it's um,
Um,
the river that connects the Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. I can't remember what it's called.
yeah, I think it's
And you just Yeah, and you just go along it, and then it brings you to like this really old school
yeah,
town that with like a bunch of like apothecaries and like all these kinds of stuff. It's super, super cool. So that's another thing I like to do as well.
yeah, definitely. I went to Niagara on the Lake once, and I would say it's definitely a hidden gem just in that
Oh
area.
yeah.
Everyone kind of just gravitates to Niagara Falls, but it's that city that very old school has that vintage vibe around it that everyone should check out. So thanks for pointing that
Yeah.
out for sure. And I also see that you're studying kinesiology. And also, before we get started, what would you say is one kind of introductory point you'd like to make about yourself? Let's say someone who was getting to know you for the first time and you say, "Hi, my name is JC and I." Well, what's the first thing you usually say?
Um, Usually I say I'm a student is because it's a lot of times it's in like the school context,
Okay.
especially in Oshawa. I don't really do anything else other than school and hockey in Oshawa. But if we're talking personality wise, I just say I'm a pretty open-minded guy. I'll have a discussion with anybody about anything and everything. So I always like to learn from people and see like how people view life from their own eyes. So
Hmm. That's great. That's great. Okay, you're very, very open to learning. So of course I'm open to learning too. So I wanna learn a bit more about the hockey team altogether. So did you know any one of the
mhm.
team members before you joined the team at first?
No, I did not. I was in Alberta for 2 years prior to coming here. So I didn't really know any of the guys. I played against a few of them, not knowing back when I was in minor hockey or even I think junior, I played against one or two. But other than that, I didn't really know anybody.
Okay, fair. So how was that transition like coming into the squad, and who would you say are your best buddies right now on the team?
The transition was pretty normal, especially having played junior hockey in a few different teams. You get used to introducing yourself to a brand new group of guys a few times. So you kind of get used to being the new guy and adapting to an environment. Now I want to say Matt Gomerchik and Bullion are definitely Michael Bullion are definitely two of the guys that I get along with. Matt Gomerchik being in the same program, we always help each other out, support each other through this journey.
Yeah.
And as for Michael Bullion, he and I just kind of funny story. We went to a dinner in McGill, um, in Montreal while playing McGill, and he and I just happened to be at the same table in first year, and we just kind of started talking. And I found out that I actually played against him in minor hockey,
Oh,
and we just started talking about that, started talking about life and all of that. And ever since then, he and I have just been really good friends.
interesting, interesting. Life kind of just put your path together in that sense.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. So what's like the funniest incident both of you have had together, or just anything along the lines of your friendship so far since then?
Oh, that's a good question. I always go down. I guess it's a reoccurring theme. We go out for a coffee and we just start talking about the most random things. We just go off talking about life, talking about politics, talking about school, talking about anything and everything. We just sit down and talk for hours. Like we'll go for like 4 or 5 hours sometimes. And a lot of times we'll meet for like a study date or something.
Okay.
And it turns out we just talked and drank coffee the entire time.
Fair, fair, fair. I know those ones for sure. I mean, if it's a great conversation and it's really, really intriguing, it's very easy to just get lost in that. So no harm, no foul in that. I mean, good conversation doesn't hurt anybody for sure.
Exactly.
Taking a look back at the history lane or memory lane now, I want to know how you got into hockey in the first place, and you're a defenseman, right?
Yes.
So how you even got in
Um,
that position to just the whole history of JC going into hockey.
so essentially, my parents started getting me to skate when I was two. Um, my family's originally from Quebec City, and there's a fairly big mall with a bunch of attractions within the mall, like a miniature Edmonton Mall kind of deal,
Okay.
where there's like an amusement park in it, and there's actually an ice rink in it as well. So when I was two, every time we'd go on vacation for Quebec, and back then we used to go for like 2 months at a time. So my parents would bring me skating into this little rink at the mall, and it was always public skating, like there was no games or anything like that. And my parents saw that I was actually pretty stable on my feet, so they're like, "Oh, might as well see what he can do with this." And my dad said, "You're not going to play hockey until you actually know how to skate properly," because he wanted to avoid injuries and that kind of stuff. So it took me till I was about five to be fairly stable skating, that kind of stuff. So starting, I believe I was six, I played 5 or 6, I played my first real hockey season, just being in house league, like nothing serious. The following year, did the same thing. And then after that, I started playing rep hockey, travel hockey, and then just kind of kept climbing the ranks up from there. And as for a defenseman, so my first season, I actually started as a forward.
Okay.
And I always had a tendency of simply being at the back and be pushing forward. So my parents were like, might as well just leave him at the back.
Fair
So yeah,
enough.
that's pretty much the story.
If you have a natural gravitation to
Yeah.
it, why try to fight against nature? Just let it take its course in that sense. So fast forwarding right now
Exactly.
to the future, currently playing for the Ridgebacks. Of course, this season is a very different kind of season, if it's even a season at all, with COVID and the pandemic and whatnot. What is your, or let's just say, what does your routine look like nowadays as a student as well as a hockey player too?
So obviously, like you said, this year's a little bit different. And before I dive into my routine, I want to say that the team has actually done a really good job in keeping our attention and keeping our competitiveness levels up. Especially we play like inter squad games, and we have a little competition going on where we play like a 7 game series where with teams and that kind of stuff. And the guys are taking it seriously, and it's actually quite nice to have a bit of competition nowadays, even though it's only like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 and it's against your own teammates. It's still nice to have that drive and have those days to just forget about everything and have fun with some of the boys. So I want to say that the team has done a really good job doing that. So these things happen on Mondays and Wednesdays. And as for my schedule, it's pretty much work and school. I actually work at the rink as well. So I work there, I play hockey there, and then I study whenever I'm not at the rink, really.
That's a good, very, very good balance. Kind of like working where you play at the same time. That's like everyone's dream in that sense. So, of course, you've spoken more about the team and how they're really taking everything very seriously. The plans and preparations you guys are making is making you guys well prepared for this upcoming season. So,
Mhm,
I remember towards the end of last season, the team qualified for the playoffs, although we got knocked out eventually by a pretty
mhm.
strong team. But there was that sense of, let's say, not necessarily for lack of a better word, let me just say breakthrough, because of course it's not the first time or anything that something really big has happened. But
Mhm.
there was that glimmer of a lot of anticipation that big things are to come. Big things are going to follow after this based on that performance. So how are you guys
I
translating that excitement moving forward to perform even much better than you guys did very well at that time?
I really like that you brought up the series because, in my opinion, the first 2 games we played very well.
Yeah.
We lost the first one in overtime or double overtime. I can't remember, one or the other. And it was the goal was a fluke. It was just a shot that hit our goalie, flew up in the air. We were all trying to bat it down, and it turned out it hit somebody and went in the net. So it was one of those, and e- even in that game, it was ours. We dominated on the shot side of it. We really played well. We were on the puck. We were on the offensive. Like, we weren't backing down, and we're putting pressure on one of the best teams, arguably, in the country.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, behind UNB, U of A, and stuff like that. But they were definitely up there last year. And with that said, and yes, we did struggle a little bit at the beginning of the season, but as the season went on, I felt we really applied pressure to the big teams, and we really the scores. You would just look at the score and be like 3-2 or 2-1, stuff like that. Like, it could have gone either way. Like, one bounce went for the other team or our team, and one or the other got the win. Like, it was one of those games, most games, which is an unbelievable sign for the future, knowing that we are competing and we are up there and we are fighting for top ranking spots. And every night we're fighting for a win. It's not like, oh, we're gonna get blown out tonight.
Exactly. There's definitely that fighting spirit for sure that I can see moving forward, and not even nobody ever feels like, okay, this team is too big to go and compete against. We all feel that yes, we're just as good because we can work just as hard, we can play just as hard as them, and it was pretty evident. We could all feel that energy and drive and commitment. So we're all very proud of you guys, and we're looking forward to some of the big stuff that's gonna happen. So let's look more at you as a person, though. Just slightly away from hockey, we want to learn more about JC as an individual. What would you say is probably your most embarrassing moment you've ever had in your life so far? Just to kind of
Oh, I've had
lighten the mood a bit.
I've had quite a few. I'm a pretty clumsy guy. Motor skills are only good on the hockey things, I guess. um, but just honestly, at the job, I'm constantly breaking things. Just one of those. I mean, it's nothing serious, but it's just I'm a clumsy guy. It's not fun to go through these things. It is embarrassing in my opinion. But I work hard and I hope that compensates for it.
I mean, as long as you're working harder than that, then it's not going to make much of a difference. But it is what it is, I guess. It happens.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I also want to ask a different question, though. Let's say you were, I don't know, you were at work or you were just coming back from a game or something, and then somebody tapped you from behind, and you turn around and you see it was Hamilton. What would your reaction be like?
Did you say Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be unbelievable. I don't know what he would be doing at Oshawa, but that'd be sick.
What would your reaction be though?
Honestly, like I would literally look at him and say, "What are you doing here?" And then honestly, I would ask him to either go for a drink, a coffee, whatever case may be, ignoring the lockdown thing if it's not past 11. And I'd want to ask him like a million questions. I'm super curious about his path, super curious about, well, he's about to be 7-time world champion. It's to me, somebody who's achieved that kind of level has a mindset that separates him from everybody else in the world. I mean, he's the only one that's done it. Well, second guy that's done it actually. And it's just that mindset is a winning mindset. It's a mindset that gets you successful in life. And I'm very curious about his path, about the ups and the downs that he has to face, because obviously his journey wasn't sunshine and rainbows. So that's definitely something that I'm curious about, and just ask him about more about Formula One and more about how his day-to-days are and that kind of stuff. It'd be, in my opinion, a long conversation if he'd be willing to take the time and sit down with me.
Definitely, definitely. I can already tell like a lot of questions are already popping out there. You kind of want to get a strong sense of his mind altogether, kind of be able to read
Yeah.
into it. So of course you can implement that for yourself too and reach those levels of success that he's reached to for sure. Definitely anybody who
Mhm.
wants to learn that.
Exactly. There's a few people that would love to pick their brains because I mean they're at the top of the game. They're superstars in this world. They're figures such as Tiger Woods. And even if we go more in the celebrity side of things, I would be very curious to pick like Dwayne Johnson's brain, Steve Harvey's brain, like these people's brains, because they have such a winning mindset and driving mindset that they don't let anything in their past bring them down, and they push through adversity. And it's more to see how they react to that and how they deal with these things. And
Yeah,
yeah, essentially, like you said, the mindset.
exactly. I think it's powerful. I want to ask this question. Do you read a lot of books then?
I do. I've read Steve Harvey's book. I've read Kevin Hart's book. Like I read a lot of, I guess, autobiographies, if you want to, I believe is the right word.
Yeah.
Um, just because to me, I said earlier, it's all about the mindset. It's all about how these people deal with life, because everybody deals with their own demons and everybody's got their own stuff going on. And to me, it's these people writing books is such an advantage to life, knowing how everybody deals with things differently and trying to get a mix of everything so that like you find your own recipe of what works for you. So I feel like, especially on my downtime on Christmas, I'll definitely be reading a few books. Right now during the school year, it's a bit harder, but on my off time, I definitely read books.
100%. I really admire that. You definitely just prove that you're the kind of person who loves to learn. I mean, just like how you said at the start. And that's a major, major, not even just hobby, that's a major activity of life that you like to carry out. And I definitely think that will take you a lot of places in that sense. And let me paint a hypothetical for you then. So let's say you were to strike a conversation with Kevin Hart during Christmas time. For again, just like the Lewis Hamilton case, he just so happens to be in Wheeling or Oshawa for some whatever reason, and he's chilling with your family. You're all wearing Christmas sweaters. Speaking of which, what would you say is the ideal or best Christmas sweater you've ever had yourself?
Oh, honestly, it's kind of plain. I've had it for years, but it's just like Santa playing golf.
Oh.
I've had it for years. To me, it's a classic. It's ugly colors too, but I always wear it once a year.
I mean, if it never gets old, then why get rid of it? It's working, then just go for it. So, still on the hypothetical, then this
Exactly.
kind of ask the question to what would you say is the best kind of, let's say you could only eat one thing during this conversation and it had to be pizza, what would you say is the best pizza recipe that you'll go for while having this conversation with Kevin Hart?
Is it recipe or like company or like what's on the pizza? Is that what,
Whenever
like
you want.
which kind of direction are you asking here?
Whatever you want.
So there's a place down in Font Hill, near Welland where I live. It's called Massimo's,
Okay.
and to me, it has, in my personal opinion, it's the best pizza because there's a lot of, actually, funny story about the Niagara region overall. There's a lot of like family owned pizza diners. So like everybody makes their pizzas differently, and I've tried plenty of them. And in my opinion, so far, Massimo's has been the best. And I guess on the pizza over there, I really like. I like mixing it up. Like I'm a classic pepperoni and cheese kind of guy, but over there, I really like the ham, onion, and pepper pizza, green pepper pizza.
Nice, nice, nice. I mean, that's a fun fact that I didn't even know that a lot of them are family owned. We just noticed that there are a lot of them in the area, but good thing that you were able to pinpoint one in particular. I know sometimes it can be pretty hard to just pinpoint one kind of pizza that you like, especially if you're a pizza lover like yourself.
Yeah.
And speaking now, I'm going
Yes.
a slight pivot as well too. I know that of course apart from hockey you like to do other things too for sure. But I kind of heard through the grapevine that you like to play Spikeball as well. So how good are you at Spikeball?
I'm all right. I'm not the greatest at it. I enjoy it though. I play a lot of it with my friends throughout the summer. We go to this beach called Shirkson Beach where it's essentially like a campground. So you can only go there if like you own a campground, if you have somebody you know owns a campground and whatnot. And actually, a bunch of my buddies are actually security guards there. So um, are able to go through a bunch of us and we play tournaments of spikeball there. It's actually quite awesome.
Nice. They gave you the plug just
Yeah.
to the access just to get. That's pretty great. So in this part, I want to play a little game with you. Just a very quick round before we then go ahead to talk about family and whatnot, and then wrap up the whole conversation in that way. So this name of the game is if I had this, whatever it is that I say, for a day, I would, and you just briefly
Okay.
tell me what you would do. So
Okay.
if you had $1 billion just for a day, not more, not less, what would you do?
Um, all right. So I'll say this in two ways. So if I had $1 billion just for one day,
Yeah.
I would likely buy a bunch of cars and probably buy a bunch of plane tickets so I can travel. And I'd likely try to invest if I can keep some. uh, but yeah, I think I'm a huge car fanatic. So I would, as you can tell with Lewis Hamilton in Formula One, so I would definitely get a few nice cars and
Yeah.
um, probably try to get a house too. And just invest in myself. I know cars are depreciating assets, but not houses. So
Yeah.
I definitely help my parents out too. Do like either renovations in the house, pay for some renos, help with that kind of stuff. So
That's good. You're a good man for sure. Always thinking about
I
family.
appreciate, I appreciate it.
Second one, if you had a hockey arena for a whole day, a whole hockey arena for a whole day, what would you do?
I mean, especially during the hockey season, I'm on the ice 6 times a week, so I probably wouldn't do much because I'm already on the ice 6 times a week. But right now, I would definitely try to take advantage and bring a few people out and have a game or two and just try to free my mind for a few hours.
Okay, that's true. Just I mean, just let go, let loose of all life's worries, and kind of just go ahead
Yeah.
and work on the ice for sure. And then now to tie it into family. So if you had your entire extended family, like everybody you're connected to within reach, I don't know, grandparents, parents, everybody in a whole house, just I don't know how many of them, maybe tens, hundreds, thousands, who knows, in one house for a whole day, what would you do?
So as I said before, my family's from Quebec City. Me and my parents are actually the only ones that are not in Quebec.
Okay.
So for me, it's that thought is actually quite foreign because I've never even thought of that before because we're always so far. And when we go down, we only see a few select people because we don't have all that much time nowadays with work and life and all of that. If that were to happen, I feel that I would just take the time, sit down, once again, have a coffee, whatever, and talk with them, see how their lives are going, because I haven't really had much time to do any of that with that side of my family, unfortunately.
Mhm. I mean, that's good. That's nice. Yeah, be able to catch up and then just see how everyone's doing. Good, solid. So
Mhm.
now speaking still on family though. Your family, everybody just all together that you call family. How would you say they've influenced you and maybe even your mindset too as a person? Like you know how you really love to learn from other people. You like to educate yourself. You like to have conversations. How has your family influenced all the different sides of JC as an individual?
S- So that learning side of thing of mine, always trying to learn from people, always trying to learn from life, school, whatever case may be. I get that from my grandfather. He's a very well educated man. Went to university for years, decades ago, and he was a prof at private schools, universities, you name it. He was a prof, kind of a bit everywhere, and every morning he would always do crosswords. And when I was younger, I would just sit down with him. I have no idea what the crosswords were. I mean, they were fairly complex, and even to this day, I probably wouldn't even know. But every time I would just, oh, what is this? And then, oh, what is this? And then it would take us probably like an hour and a half or two to go through the crossword, but he'd tell me what everything is. And it was, it's pretty cool. Like that side of thing is who is where I learned everything from for myself, trying to ask questions and that kind of stuff, and always keep an open mind.
Nice.
Um, I guess the the other side of my personality, where it's just kind of treat people the way you want to be treated and be nice to everyone, like no matter who they are, and always know that everybody has their own demons they're battling, so always treat them with respect because you have no idea what's happening on their side. Like a lot of it, uh, a, lot, a lot of it comes from my mom. um, and then as for my dad, I guess my on ice, once I put my helmet on attitude comes from my dad, where it's just kind of don't let anybody step over you, like just stand up for yourself. And I guess that translates to life as well. So I get that from my dad.
That's great. That's great for sure. So that's a strong driving force. Lots to learn. I'm sure that you've been able to get from your dad too, from your mom as well. Lots of I would say heartfelt, emotional parts you've been able to get to, and even from your grandpa too. Just that intellectual learning, always lifelong learning and education, and next level thinking. I'm sure it must be great to have access to somebody who's well learned, who's a prof, who's done so many like big things like that. That's very rare. So shout out to you. So
Thank you.
in that sense, to wrap up everything, what would you say is your very last and final message to the world out there, to whoever is watching this?
um, wow, that's a tough one. That's putting me on the spot here. uh, Honestly, with times that we're going through right now, my biggest thing is like, there's a saying, and honestly, I'm not good with sayings. Like I always mess them up. I always confuse them. That's another embarrassing thing of mine. But I believe the saying goes, um, "The sun will rise beyond the storm," or this, or the after the storm has passed, the sun will rise. Like something like that. I can't remember. It's along those lines. So I would say, especially for the current circumstances, that sure we are going. Everybody is going through horrible times at the moment. It's not easy. It's very foreign. It's different. There's no social, if not very slim social interactions. So for now, I just want to say that keep your head down and that the sun will come up soon. We will be able to gather again. We will be able to go back to consider normal and be able to keep thriving toward our goals.
Yeah, there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel, for sure. Thank you so much for that wisdom, JT.
Exactly.
And thank you for joining us. I was able to learn a lot from you for sure, and just learn a lot about you as well.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
No problem.